All right, in one, evaluate rational exponents. A rational number is a fraction, and an exponent is the, let's see, it's whenever it's up in the top, it's a superscript, okay? So we're going to evaluate exponents that are fractions. And let's talk about the fraction to begin with. So let's make another one. If I have, let's just say 3/4, we would pronounce that x to the 3/4. And what that is, if you have a fraction as an exponent as a fraction, the denominator or the bottom number is called a root. And then the top number is still just the exponent. Okay, so let's figure out what's going on here. Whenever you have an exponent as a fraction, the root number is your radical. It's how many you're going to be looking for to be able to get the base number. So this is how you would rewrite this and maybe make it make a little bit more sense. So anytime you have an exponent as a fraction, it's basically some kind of radical. Now, this one, your base, is going inside the radical. Then your root is outside here. And if your root is 2, and only when it's 2, you don't necessarily have to put the 2 out on the hitch part of it, okay? But I'm going to do it on this one so we can understand which one is which. And then the 1 is your exponent, and it would go there. So what this is saying is, what number, if you multiply it by itself, so you have two numbers, and it's the same number, and you multiply them together, what number multiplied by itself gives you 1? And that answer is 1, because 1 times 1 is 1. And then you take your exponent, because we haven't looked at it yet, and then we do 1 to the 1, and in this case it is just 1. Okay, I'm going to go on. Now that one didn't make a lot of sense, but we're going to get to it. So we have radical 25, and since the root is 2, I'm not going to put 2 outside because we don't need it. And because the exponent is 1, I'm not going to put it as an exponent because we don't need it. So basically 25 to the 1 over 2 is saying the same thing as the square root of 25. What's the square root of 25? 5. Okay, now what goes inside? 16. What goes on the hitch? 4. And what's your exponent? 1. Again, if your root is 2, you don't have to put the 2. If your exponent is 1, you don't have to put the 1. I just put it this time so you can see where everything's at. Now, this one is asking what number, if you multiply it 4 times together, will give you 16. And that answer is 2, because 2 times 2 is 4, 2 times 2 is 8, and 8 times 2 is 16. So what do you have 4 of to multiply together to get 16? 16. And then don't forget your 1. 16 to the 1 is 16. Okay. 27 and 3. What do you multiply 3 times together to get 27? 3, because 3 times 3 is 9, and 9 times 3 is 27. The fourth root of 256 is 4. And now this one, 64, 6, and 5. So what do you multiply by itself 6 times to get 64? 2. 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 is 64. But now we have an exponent that isn't 1. So we have to remember that that's there. And what is 2 to the 5th power? It is not 10. It means 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 times 2, which is 32. The 4th root of 16, and then to the 7th power is 2 to the 7th. And if 2 to the 6th is 64, then 2 to the 7th is 128. Cube root of -1. Notice that these are negatives. The reason that we can have a negative inside this radical is because our root is odd, which means I'm looking for 3 numbers multiplied together to get -1. And the only way that you can multiply anything together to get a negative number is if you have an odd amount of negatives. So -1 times -1 times -1 is -1. The cube root of oops, that's wrong. The cube root of -27, because this is odd, this can be negative. And our answer is going to be negative. And 3 times 3 times 3 is 27. So -3 times -3 times -3 is -27. Now on this one, this is when it changes a little bit and gets a little bit weird. These exponents are negative. Negative exponents are bad. So we can't evaluate anything if it has a negative exponent. The way that we get the exponent to become positive is if we flip the base, and then if you flip the base, then your exponent can become positive. So this is saying 1 over the 5th root of 32, and 5 numbers multiplied together to get 32 is 2, so your answer is 1/2. 1 over 49 to the positive 1, 2 is 1 over the square root of 49, so 1 over 7. 1 over, now the -243 stays negative because the -243 isn't a negative exponent. It's just a negative number, so it's going to stay, but the -1 over 5 is what's going to change to positive 1 over 5. So 1 over, and your answer is going to be negative. There you go. 1 over, nope, that's positive. Okay. So 1 over the cube root of -64 to the 5th power. So whenever we have 64 and you're multiplying them, what number do you multiply 3 times to get -64? -4, but the 5 is still there. I'm not going to lie, I'm going to use a calculator on this one. I don't know what 4 to the 5th power is. 10 to 24. So this answer is -1 over 1024. Now, I told you how to do everything, but I know most of you guys were like, I don't want to do any of this stuff like this. So let's go back up here. I'm going to change my share. Let's see, new share, calculator, new share, calculator, share. Okay. I hope you can see that. So you can use a calculator. And so we're going to clear this out. And let's talk, share. So we do 64. I just picked one of these so I can actually see it. And that button right there is the exponent button. But our exponent is a fraction, so we're going to hit fraction. And 5/6 equals, and we got 32. And we got 32 right there on that problem. So you can do these problems on the calculator, but it would be great if you actually thought about what you're doing. -64 in parentheses to the, nope, that's wrong, delete, to the fraction -5/3. I'm not for sure if this one's gonna, okay, so this one didn't give, okay, this one didn't give a fraction. This didn't give your answer. So what I suggest is do it if it wasn't a negative exponent, and 5/3. Okay, see, I got the -1024, but I didn't put the -5/3 in the calculator because it wasn't giving it to me. So that's when you have to remember that the 5/3 was negative to begin with. So you're just going to put the -1024 over or under 1. All right, let me know if you have any questions.